Hello, I'm Dr. Ron England, and we're going to talk about versioning in software. And this is actually nothing to do with the languages or anything like that. This is specifically a lecture to deal with how do you manage versions and actually manage multiple users in a single software project. So the tool that we're going to actually look at today, I'm using Visual Studio 2013 here, but the tool I'm going to work with today is one called Subversion. And I'm going to use a specific version of Subversion called TortoiseSVN. Subversion is often abbreviated SVN. And that's one of the tools that I'm going to use here. So let's look at, well, first let's look at how do you find information on TortoiseSVN. So let's come over here to Google and let's type in TortoiseSVN and let's see if we can find some information on it. Oh, there we go, tortoisesvn.net. And if you look at this, it's relatively straightforward and easy to download. That, by the way, is an advertisement. It's not TortoiseSVN, it's PDF Writer. But follow the pages to the download, and then you can download and install TortoiseSVN. And once you do, you're going to find that you have some menus that are now going to be available to you that weren't available to you before. So we're going to actually look at specifically the Windows Explorer, because that's where these menus are added. So now if I'm in a directory, let's just go back to Documents directory. If I right-click on a directory, I'm going to see some menu items that weren't there. SVN Checkout and TortoiseSVN. Now, the concept of TortoiseSVN is really straightforward. What you do is you create a repository, and that's where you're going to put versions of something that you're working on. Okay, so it's a version control system. Now, in the case of that I'm going to show here, I'm actually going to put that version control system out on the internet. I'm going to actually do it in the cloud. Now, of course, you have to have cloud services to do that. So I'm going to come over here to my internet page here, and we're going to go to one called CloudForge. If you look up on TortoiseSVN site, you'll find that there's multiple TortoiseSVN repositories where you can put your files in and have them available to you. I've just created a new project within CloudForge. This is cloudforge.com, where I have installed the service SVN so that I can use SVN with it. And what it's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to take my directory and it's going to allow me to put it up there. So let's do that. The way it works here is really straightforward. I have this URL that is the location of my SVN, and I went ahead and copied that to the clipboard. And I'm going to go into here and I'm going to take the SMATA 2013 directory, which is one of my projects. Now, I'm only going to do the SMATA 2013 directory because that's the code directory of all the source code. I don't want the packages. I don't want any of this other stuff. I just want this one directory. And I'm going to go to TortoiseSVN and I'm going to say import. And what it's going to do, it's going to need to import it to this location. I'm going to paste in the URL of the repository and I'm going to hit OK. And it should, voila, start uploading everything. So we should see this long, arduous process of uploading. So what it's doing is it's taking all of those files which existed in that SMATA 2013 directory, and since I did this recursively, it's also going to take all the directories, subdirectories, and files within those subdirectories and also upload them. Now, that you may want to have more localized and simple upload and download, because if you're in a slower connection, it may take a little bit of time. Now, while this is going on, while this is actually going along with the uploading, I'm demonstrating to you the ability to go ahead and put this into a cloud service. That doesn't mean that is what you have to do. So if I were to go back into my documents, I could create a repository, which I have, by the way, right here, a repository called Subversion, where I can actually put the stuff also, and I would simply reference it by its file path. If I right-click on this, I still get the TortoiseSVN menu here. And if in the TortoiseSVN menu, I get this thing called a Repo browser. Well, first let's browse to the thing. You don't see anything. You browse to the directory. There's really not much to see there. I created it using one of the defaults within TortoiseSVN. But if I use the Repo browser, okay, I can see that I've actually already, one time, uploaded that directory into here. Actually, the packages, SMATA 2013, all that into here. It's a backup. It's essentially a backup copy. It's a repository of all those files, which will actually manage version control. That's on my local machine, not out in the cloud. So I actually have this local version. Well, why is this useful? Well, it's useful because I can create versions of stuff and I can compare. So how often is it that you create a file and you make some modifications to the file and you decide, you know what, I want to go back and I want to use a previous version of that file. Or maybe there's multiple people working on the file and that somebody wants to lock it, make a revision, and then you can go and you can make, they can check it back in. So now here what you're going to do is you're going to have this concept of creating a working version of something, making modifications and checking them back into a repository, which is essentially your master copy here. Okay. Don't need to go any further than that. We can see that we've actually completed. So this entire version is actually now up there onto the internet in CloudForge. And if I were to do the overview here, I should see that I should have one commit. I've actually committed something there. Now, locally, locally, let's go back to my, whoops, I don't want that. I want my, here we go. If I go back to my Visual Studio 2012 projects, now that whole SMATA 2013 directory has gone up to the browse. Into the CloudForge. What can we do here? Well, here's something that we can do. Let's go over to here into. I'm just going to go into the root documents directory. I'm going to create a new folder called SMATA Working Copy. Now, I can make this SMATA Working Copy on another computer. That's a beauty thing. It's beautiful that I can do that. I don't actually need a SMATA working copy on this computer because guess what? I have the original here. But I'm going to make this a SMATA working copy. And now I can go to SMATA working copy. I can go to SVN checkout. Okay, I can go ahead and put the path of the SMATA 2013. I can take it down to SMATA working copy. And I click OK. And hopefully it will start. Not responding. We always love it when it's not responding, which does that every now and then. There it goes. It's now responding. It's making that connection. And if you look at it, voila, look what it's doing. It's actually making a full-fledged copy of that entire project right here in my local one. And it is going to be a working copy of this. So checkout is finished. It did it relatively fast. I can go to SMATA working copy. And if you look there, it's the entirety of what was in that SMATA directory. Now, that you've done this, this is now a working copy that you can work with. Now I've got something that's very interesting here. So let's actually do something with this. Okay, if I right click here, I now have these other menu choices that we didn't have before, such as update, commit, update to revision, switch. Okay, those are new things that we didn't have, and you have a few extra things right here. Well, let's do something with this. I'm going to go ahead, I had Visual Studio up, I'm going to go ahead and close. Okay, I'm going to make new. I actually don't even want to do new. I just want to have it completely closed because let's say I want to make a modification in my working directory and I want to upload that. Well, let's go ahead and bring up the about. I could do this with Notepad or something else, but if I use the default, it's an ASPX file. So guess what? It's going to do this with an ASPX file extension, which means it's going to bring up Visual Studio to do this. So while we're sitting here waiting for Visual Studio to initialize, and voila, there it goes. It's now initialized because I double-clicked on this. I'm going to go ahead and make some changes. So I'm going to make this about, okay, make one simple change, about SMATA. I'm just changing the title to say about SMATA online. And where it says your app description page in this, I'm going to say this is all about SMATA online. I'm going to save this. It's now saved. And goodbye. I'm going to close it. Well, now I can go ahead and I can commit that file back up. Okay. I hit commit. It's the only file that I've made changes to. So it's modified. I click OK. It's going to go ahead and commit that one file there. Now I can do some interesting stuff with my Repo browser. When I said I had a Repo browser, well, Repo browser is a repository browser. I'm not going to actually do the Repo stuff right here, but if I go to TortoiseSVN and I go to the Repo browser, and I use the URL that I had previously, which is that master version there, I now have a second version of this about ASPX, so I can now go ahead and I can look at it. So in this case, I can look at revisions. Okay, it's going to make a little plot here. See, I have revision 1 and revision 2 being the latest version of that because I did make a revision to this. Okay, and if I look here and find the, oh, you know what, I wanted to look at, I can update the, so I don't know if you can actually see that because it might be below the screen. Let me move this up. I can update it to a specific revision that I had. Notice in this case, I have a working copy, I have other copies. I'm not going to do that. I can go back to my revision 1. And another thing that I can do is I can actually look at the differences between one revision and another. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So what I'm doing is I've navigated back to my Smata working copy. That was the copy that I had downloaded. It's my working copy. I can now right-click on About. I can go to the TortoiseSVN directory and go up here to Diff with Previous Version. So I'm now going to look at version 2 versus version 1, which is now going to bring up the Differences browser. And if you noticed, I deleted this and I added this and I made these changes that are all highlighted. So you have this incredible ability to, with SVN, these are all, every tool that I've shown you here is an absolutely free tool for you to be able to use. But I've taken you through some of the very basics of how to get this thing up and running. Basic concepts that you have here. SVN, subversion, is a version control system that allows you to look at different, to create and manage versions of different types of documents. Okay, the way you do this is you download Subversion. In this case, we downloaded TortoiseSVN, which is a Windows version of this, and we installed it. Okay, then what we did is we actually went out to a location on the internet where we created a account on the internet to store this information at a site called CloudForge. We then imported from our current directory where we had our code out to CloudForge, which is now made basically a subversion repository out on CloudForge, which was configured to use SVN. Then I came back to here, back to my local machine. I created a directory for a working copy to work with, and I'm now working off of my working copy. I made a revision in my working copy of the about.aspx file. In that ASPX file, I then looked at the differences between the two files, which are now shown here, and you've seen some of the capabilities of version control management. One of the great things about this is now I can go to any other machine that I want to program on, as long as it's got the tools that I need, Visual Studio 2012. I can then create a version of my entire thing on that machine and work with it. What does this mean for the students that are in my classes? Well, you have computers that are out here in the lobby that have all the tools available to you, but not your code. What you've currently been doing is copying your code to a key, okay, and working off of that. Now what you can do is copying it to basically a key being well, here, can't think of the word, but one of these things right here, okay, and you've been making copies of it and putting the copies on there and working off of it. Well, now you can pull this stuff directly off the internet from a master copy and then check those versions, check the information directly back in, and guess what? You've got the ability to work anywhere at any time with your code base now. Hopefully this is extremely useful to you in what you're doing. And yes, you do need to learn how to use version control and version control management systems. This is one that I've specifically done a lecture on for you. Thank you very much. Good programming.